E taku matamata, taku matataua, taku whaiwhai tō mua te tūākana, kia whaikupu ake atu anō hau ki a koe ki roto tēnei wā tonu nei. Ia rātau o mātau katoa no. Ka tika kia whakaroke ake atu anō ai rahu ki rātau ki o tiki ngā tūāhuatanga o te wāno. I roto tonu ia mātau, me tā mātau e whai ake atu nei ki o tiki ngā WhakataungaKereeme. Ai ngā kōrero katoa i te tau naha wenua o rātau arara ia mātua, ai atu puna mātua māra o rātau o roto tonu anō. Mātua i te takotoranga hoki o rātau i awana kōrero katoa kai roto pū. Ka toa anō tino tupu mai anō ai rā ngā kōrero katoa whakatakotoria ake atu anō ai rā i roto i ngā WhakataungaKereeme. I ngā Kereeme katoa o te wā, o te rā, e kākawe ake atu nei, e tātou mātau ki roto ki te wā tonu nei anō. Ai pā, ai tō mātau matua nui te rangi. Atu atua kaharawa, te rungarawa, te ia we atua, te iehua. Koutou tokotoru anō nā whakarongorongo mai rā, whakarongorongo kau i te kupu, i te whakaaro, i te karea roto ki tēnā no, ki tēnā. I te tangi, i te nawe, te katoa i ni mea, whaikupu ai rāno e mātau, i roto i nei rā. I roto i tēnei ao ke ake atu anō e pā. Me tā mātau e whai ai, A koe anō hoki a hau, a kāea, to ioua, ko hoki ke ake mai anō ai rā, ki o tiki ngā kōre, anana, nui ke atu anō no ētahi kai te uiui kōrero i a hau, e patapatai ake atu ana no i a hau i te mea, i tēnā, i ngā wiki ka tae tonu ake nei, ka pāhi ka kau atu, i a tātou mātau, he harawa nei, te aha o te mea, he aha ko i ana anō āhau, ka kau te kōrero i te ia wiki, ana he aha no rā ngā take, ka kau he aha nei, te tikanga i pēnā, he harawa nei. No reira nā hau kua huki ke ake mai anō ai, kia puta mai anō ai rā hau ākanu hiki ake atu, hei kawe mai te kōrero ki roto tēnei rā, ki roto tēnei wā tonu nei anō, kia mōhio mai anō ai rā, ia wai, aha ke rawa nei, te mea. No reira nā hau, kua hoki ke ake mai anō ai, me taku pai. Karakau e take nunui, karakau o te māharahara, karakau o mātau e tino pōnā nā manawa pārā nei rā e mātau, karakau i rangi anō e tūāhuatanga kai te rereke te haere, koina nā noiho, me tā mātau e tīni rawa nei kia hoki ke ake atu anō ai ki tā mātau, ki mua i whakarite ke atu anō ai i te ingoa te iehua, i te ingoa te iehua. a koi anu. No reira ahau I noa ia I ki roto tēnei wā tonu nei e pā. I tō kākawe mai I te kōrero kia tika, kia pai, kia takoto I nā, I roto I ngā tū huatanga ki roto ki te tika, ki roto ki te tau, a kia tua no ai rā kia wai. Me tā mātau, pai ki pēa mea hau nā no ki atu ki roto ki te kōrero o muana, whakamārama ki atu anō ai hea harawara anō a hau āhua whakatāha ki atu ana I te kōrero. Pai ki atu pēa tērā. Hoi anō, ko koe tonu ia kai te ārahi rawara, e pā, I ngā mea katoa I te āhuatanga. Me tā mātau e kākawera, ko koe ia tonu, ko ia, ko koe tonu ia te pū, ko koe tonu ia te amorangi ki roto ki ngā tū āhuatanga katoa e pā, koe na nāno a hau, whai ki atu anō ai te mea ki roto ki tā hau tohu ai, tā hau whai kupu ai e pā. No reira nā whakamoe miti. Whakawhetai rawa ai te ingoa te iehua. Iohou tino kaharawa nei, te whakaaro nui ki a tātou mātou, tōhou atawhai tino kaharawa ana me tāu anō ki te mana ki rawa I a mātou putats, I ngā whānau putats, I ngā tamariki putats, I ngā mokopuna, I ngā pakeke koroua, kuia, pahake, kaimātua, katoa nuai rā, I te aitanga, I te tini, o te tini, I te whānau, I te uri, I te hapu ureta rewa, puta katoa nuai rā, ki te iwi, rā, ki te hapu, ki te hapu nui tonu ne tā rewa rā nei, puta katoa, tōhou rongo mau, kai te mau ati ki roto ki te katoa, tōhou whakaaro nui, kai te kakawe mai rā, I roto tonu anō I tō wairua e pā, ki roto tonu anō ki a tātou mātou kātua, I te ingoa te iehua. Mena, ka piti hono ka tātai hono ko rātou mātonu tērā rātou kaitua o te ārai ka rido atu. Rātou rā tērā nā hau nei anō ki o uringa. Riro atu rā no rātou ki tiwa o te ārai o te mate nā hau. Nā hau e pā. E no reira nā hau poroporo ake ki atu ai. Poroporo ai a rātou. Nā reira e koutou mā katoa no. Koutou te mate koutou kawe atu nei te taonga tuku iho, ka waiho mai anu ai rā koutou. Ka wāwāhi atu koutou. Koutou kua whetū rangitia kētia. Kai te mihi atu. Haere. Whakariro, whakauti. Ka piti hono ka tātai, hono ko tātou mātonu anō rā tēnei. Te ka nuhi ora ki a tātou kua. Kai te mihi atu. Tina pai tonu hoki a hau te hoki mai. Ia ka aia. Toi ohua. Kai te mihi atu. Tēnā rā tātou. Mauri ora. Kahuri. Aye, yeah, good to be back. And just yeah, in my prayer there, just letting it be known that just some changes going on for us. That's all really that's happening for us. We're moving into times where a lot of our kōrero, and this is why I'm back on today. I actually was due to come back on next week, but I decided last week to come back on this week. And my kōrero on the Ariki page, via the Ariki page, will now, I will now bring that to you probably over around 3 or 4 weeks. So I'll, from today, you won't see me again do one of the kōrero for Tahumaakaakanuimatua settlements until about another 3 weeks or 4 weeks' time. And the reason for that is a lot of our other kōrero are going to start to come back in. If we backdate to about 2010, October 2010, that was when strategically we decided to operate with me at the forefront, and me totally just about at the forefront, and of everything that was going on from throughout there. It was a very turbulent time, and a lot of upheaval was happening as a result of our te neina and the difficulties that they were having with accepting the kōrero of the time. And the kōrero of the time is exactly what we bring, and that we've stuck to consistently, and that we're always going to stick to. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. And we're not relaxing more either. Why I went off for a while, everyone thought there was huge reasons, and I mentioned that in my prayer too, that the reason I'm on this week is because actually I got questioned a bit too much about, and so some people were assuming a lot of different things. But in actual fact, what's happening is we're changing back to around about 2010. We strategically operated with me at the forefront and just me. Well, now a lot of our kōrero is going to come back on. A lot of different members of our iwi operations will start to take the fore. And they will deliver a lot for us, a lot of the kōrero going on in depth. A lot of in-depth kōrero will start to figure, not just mine. And I will start to come on, probably once every 4 weeks to be more precise. Once every 4 weeks, I will figure and bring my kōrero on. Other ones that we're hoping to bring you is myself and the Queen, hopefully, of the Ariki, the Oere World Te of Tahumaakaakanuimatua, and we also will hope to bring you kōrero also through the. Remember the reviews? They went off about July last year, June, July, and in June, July last year. June, July last year. Yeah, I have to talk to the quick. Well, we'll be more than well prepared for that. To bring kōrero through both of us. Both of us will figure in those kōrero. A lot of the kōrero from the runanga will change over to, apart from me being there, there'll be a lot of responsibility of te uere world te within all that kōrero, and kōrero also from the incorporation. So our quarterly reviews will start to figure again within our kōrero and updates that happen regularly for Tūtahu Trust Tahu Investments Limited, for Te Runanga Nui o Tahu also, and for Tahu Hapu Nui Tonu Incorporated all of our kōrero will start to figure, and all the different people within those areas, they'll slowly, it won't happen straight away, it'll slowly start to happen, so it'll gradually happen, and kōrero from the whatukura, I need to talk to them about that and see where they will be placed to bring kōrero through the trust, because the whatukura of Tahumaakaakanuimatua is, of course, the senior managing director also in there within Tūtahu Trust, national office that is too. And I'm just the overall, the general, the president, GM and CEO, right through the trust, the company, Tahu Investments Limited, Te runanga nui o Tahu Hapu Nui Tonu Incorporated. And all that sort of kōrero, so slowly all that kōrero will start to come on, and slowly all those people, well, the people that we have now will start to figure more within our kōrero, and start to figure more. I think it's going to be myself and Te Owere Will Te within the Aukatitai. They will do the kōrero on behalf of the Aukatitai. So to start off with, I think for a while they want within the regions for us to lead their kōrero. That's fine with us. Well, that's fine with me. I've yet to put all of that to the Queen. So to the Māori kura, to Te Owere Will Te, all those sorts of things. And they're going to be start off quite simple, quite easy to follow and easy to put across. And so when I took the forefront for our strategies, for our strategic movements from throughout 2009, 2010, right through into last year and heading towards the end of last year, things started to change back, and we started to see different movements in the space that, we thought, oh, good. We're starting to come to the end of the need for me to lead everything. So a lot of our other leading people can start to come forward now and lead their parts. And, of course, the quarterly reviews, when they come back in, you always got a review from the ariki, from the runanga Hapu, obviously. And so, that'll need to have input from the Queen, if we can get that. So, and I think we will. I am confident that we will get that. And so it'll be good to see all the different faces on board. And, of course, a lot of those people who have had a lot to do in the background there and have worked hard in the background for us, especially people within business, finance, and finance. I will ask for those people to come forward and bring some of their kōrero at very opportune times. And so, that's all that's happening. We're starting to change and roll back into what would normally be the way that we operate and function. You'll see a lot of what happens out in the field in the different regions throughout the Aukatitai, the rohe wenua, how they're operating out there among the different lands, and what's going on. So a lot of that unilateralized kaupapa and a lot of those primary kōrero on the iwi, on the hapu nui tonu uretārewa rānei, and how all of that sort of thing is coping out there in each of the aukatitai. Different areas, obviously, will focus on for different take, for different matters, for different issues, and of course for different kaupapa that arise for us. Yeah, so we're starting to change back, and that'll happen gradually. You'll start to see the different changes, and you'll see more faces than just mine now, which will be really good. That would be really, really good, because that'll give me a break. That'll give me a break, and it's been a pretty hard road, and we never ever thought it would be easy. We did expect, not in the way that it happened, we did expect some things to get tough, but we didn't expect that in the areas that we got it. You know, we didn't expect, like, for instance, you know, for te naina, you know, we didn't expect te naina to be that, how can I put it, to be that, derogatory, I guess, derogatory. E takatakahi huki no rātau, you know, so, yeah, there was just no respect, really, no respect for the tuakana line that we brought in the beginning, mind you. Nowadays, there's lots. So, and that's as a result of, you know, the turnaround of kahungunu uri. And, yeah, a lot of what's going on in there is very, very interesting. But yeah, that's why you didn't see me on for a couple of weeks. But you wouldn't have seen me until next week if I hadn't got an earful from a lot of the people that have been questioning things over the past week. And we're still working through the up first. I've got the update on settlements as usual. The old update on settlements comes through first, and then we've got the complaints. Added to those complaints, we've got kahungunu uri, which we haven't started anything on yet. I just thought I'd mention that we're watching them carefully, kahungunu uri, that if they should settle before we do, that, you know, they need to check carefully what they're settling over and how they're settling and all those ancestries, and make sure that they are typically tūturu kahungunu, no te pū, putati, whawhi ake atu. Ki tētahi pito, ki tētahi pito, ki tētahi pito. You know? They need to make sure. Mai te hohonutanga, putati ki te kāre watanga. You know, you can't settle on ancestries and lands that are not yours. Okay, so that's part of the kōrero coming through on complaints, that they will get the same, just like we've complained against Wairarapa Moana. And I think some of them are a little bit disgruntled about that, and same with Rangitāne Nui a Rangi, they're a bit disgruntled about that, but that's how it goes. You know, you settle on tūpuna and whenua that isn't yours and it's ours. I mean, they'd do the same. They'd kick up. And especially if they were senior. Okay, we're senior, right over the top of a lot of them. We claim right through to the entirety of the region, unlike any of them. Okay, so, yeah, they're just still over-claiming a bit there. Still over, well, not a bit, but quite excessively. And they haven't noticed that. And, yeah, we're just wondering whether they... I guess it's just the different priorities. It's the different priorities, because I don't think that there was any real, you know, issue there if indeed, you know, there was some sort of problem, some sort of problem there, that, they couldn't see for what was going. I'm talking about Wairarapa Moana at the moment, and Rangitane, Nui a Rangi. If there was some sort of problem that they could not see, the actual cases for them, as to why, for instance, their populations, they had got those wrong, the count in those, they had got those wrong, the interpretations of each and every ancestral line, that they got those wrong, and also the lands within which they claim interest and right. How could they get that wrong? How could they interpret it wrongly? Look, for want of a way forward for them, they need to go back, have a look at how they do that and correct it, because they're obviously doing that wrong. They're doing it wrongly. Why? Because they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to interpret genealogically, through whakapapa and whakapapa kōrero as well. They don't know how to interpret ancestries and how to account for different ancestry lineages and interpret those according to where they fall within the whakapapa, within the tūākana and tēina lineages as well. Be they for original line ancestry descents or any other descents. It doesn't matter, but because as soon as you're intermarried, through seniors or juniors, there's a lot of tikanga involved, a lot of tika, a lot of kawa, and a lot of tikanga. Okay, so you've got to consider all those things before you say, anei, ko te tahi o te tūpuna nei, o roto rangitāne, anei, tēnei nei, ko te tahi o te tūpuna mātuarawa nei, o roto kahungunu uri. So before you even declare that or decide that that is an actual fact, the case in the interpretation for you, you've got to be absolutely certain of those within those interpretations that is exactly what you have uncovered there. That concludingly what you have there is a tūpuna interpreted correctly and from within those lines and from within that fashion. Even things like checking out their reo, tō rātau reo kōrero, he arawa te āhua ki taua reo kōrero. He arawa ni te āhua ki taua reo kōrero. And if you can find any evidence of them utilizing te reo, But then again, you've got to be sure of the reo that they're using. If you're not exactly 100% sure, then you can't really utilize that. But there's all those sorts of things going on in there. And we've got people in there from those tribes trying their best to interpret those sorts of things, and they just don't know. They haven't got an idea. And we've been able to pick up on all of that. You know why? Because we have viewed all of the mistakes in their outcomes. And look, they've taken it to their settlements. And that's a part of the update coming up there. We're hoping that Kahungunu doesn't do the same, because they will get the same. And that's if they settle before we do. And the complaints could mean certain changes happen in there, in the space. But still changes that can work to all our favour. Okay, so, but yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about any of those sorts of things because, we don't know exactly what those will be until, the Crown talks to us around those sorts of things. There's other kōrero there around a new lawyer. We're at the moment looking at a new lawyer there as well, and that process is still going. We're still working that through with the Waitangi Tribunal, and also our final on the final as it stands at the moment on the statement of claim. We've been discussing that as well. The same with the Crown. Some of the Crown members have been discussing a few of the details there that we've been concerned with over the last number of weeks, and aiming to get these talks out of the way as soon as we can, and move on to the more central areas that we want to discuss with the Crown before we look at getting, hopefully we can even get our date and instructions, final instructions, before we actually head into the initial talks around the actual settlement and get our first negotiated deal on the table before us. And that'll be an awesome time. So we're not actually working in this way because of anything that's happening at the moment. We're not reacting to movements in the space either. We're just starting to get reorganized back into how can I put that, more organized fashion. We're getting more more, business orientated, and more transparency always counts for everything, and we're always organized around that, but and more professionally operating. When we resituated ourselves and reorganized around the strategic movements we were making from 2010, and we organised everything around me, that was because the runanga and the incorporation and the trust would have it no other way. The same with our rohe wenua and our people, they would have it no other way. Now we can relax a bit and go back to normal. So that's all we're doing. No movements are being made as a result of what's happening in the space. And some of the questioning that was fired, not fired, but people questioned me on was the Waikato Moriori claims, and was I, going off as a result of them, because I did comment my last audit, or was I and I said no. I've got no regrets of making that comment, because that comment would be actually factual and it would be true, and that's a part of our kōrero today, the Waikato Moriori claim. Some people said to me, have they got a claim on Wairarapa? I said no, they haven't, because we've accounted for every ancestry here. We've accounted also for the ahi kāroa, which is held by us. All the major claims where Tahumaakaakanuimatua is the claimant, and the whenua, where we have the taunahanahatanga accurately, accounted for within all those lands within which we claim right and interest in. None of the other none of the other early, first inhabitants actually hold those lands anymore. We hold the ahi kāroa and all our lands. Yeah. So they have nothing in Wairarapa ki Tarawao, the Mataua Māori. Māori is just as much a tūpuna of ours as it is, his of anyone else's. But we just hold a more senior line to Māori. So not a problem there. But just quickly, let me explain why I made that comment, is because it's very, very easy to be an iwi, to be an iwi, or a hapu nui tonu ure tārewa, and claim back over 1,000 years. because you're likely, to be accurately situated within there. I mean, most of our iwi took about 600 or 700 years to build anyway. So you're probably about right, okay? For hapu ure tārewa, that's a bit different, okay? So you don't usually go back that far, see? And this is why we question the Waikato claim, because they may have descendants that connect back that far, but we don't think Waikato actually goes back that far. And I'll tell you why, because we've always known the primary line of descent of Waikato not to be Moriori. I mean, they might be connected with Moriori, Maui and Maori. Maui and Maori. All those people, they may be connected, but, their actual tribe may not go back that far. See, because they don't extend, hapu re tārewa, don't take that long to expand. Okay? Because we studied all those different areas, and that's why I made that point, because I'd be correct. And then if you check the primary line of descent of Waikato, it's actually awa. And awa is te tini o toi. Okay? Awa's primary line of descent, or in fact their most direct line, is te tini o toi. And when you're te tini o toi, your migration into the land was 1200s. Yeah, round about 1200s. We go back, a lot further than that. And so, that's why I made those comments. And I would be pretty well correct. Because we know our stuff. And coming most direct of Moai through Te Awa, and being the last senior, most senior surviving of Te Awa, and also the last line of Tutura te Matua, who is our line into Te Awa. Okay, so there's some very significant lines, and that's why we felt a little bit aroha for the whātua up there in the north, who are getting claimed over by the Waikato Moriori claim there. And by the way, we're not actually jumping into it. I just wanted to mention that as a result, that people decided that they would question. We did take an interest in it, but we're not actually jumping officially into it. Not unless it starts to affect us within Heretaunga Wairua, Waikare Moana, and within Wairarapakitara te Mataua Maui. If it starts to affect us here and they actually come here and they claim in here, there's going to be, a lot of debates go down, and, a lot of kōrero go down that would question them very, 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 very robustly and very, very stringently, because those claims would need to be absolutely substantiated. I mean, to substantiate that we're the primary iwi here in Wairarapakitara Rua te Mataua Maui and Heretaunga Ararau te Wairua, and that's talking about an iwi that goes back over 1,000 years. We brought forward 600 primaries of the best. 600 of the best. Now, if you're hapu ure tārewa claiming back that far, you would need 3 times as much as that. You'd need at least 1,800 of the best to prove that you have that sort of claim going back that far. Okay? And if you remember the from Tuakana to Tina, the 7 iwi in the country, Moai, Hapu, Te Awa, Hapu, Tahumaakaakanuimatua, Hapu nui tonu ure tārewa. Māmoe, Hapu nui tonu ure tārewa. Moriori Hapu, Awa Hapu. So Awa comes in 6th. Okay, that's very teina line. That's a very teina line. And if you're hapu ure tārewa within that, Waikato, my understanding within Awa is that they're not actually near the more senior lines with the Nawa. They're probably about mid-range. So that's a long way down the pecking order. So you're a very, very junior line in that respect. And if the more junior you get, the worse the case gets for you. You need, probably easily, and I can't see them having that much evidence. Let me put it that way. This is why I question this claim. That's why I said what I said. And I meant what I said. And I don't regret what I said. And then again, these are tribes, and whanaunga that, we spare thoughts for. We acknowledge, we honour kiingitanga, all the way from, 1858 on. They've done a marvellous work for a lot of the tribes in the country. And but we've got to remember that they're awa. That's how we've always seen them, as awa. And even if they did have a Moriori connection or line somewhere there, and it was connected in the north to over 1,000 years ago, we don't think it's their line. We believe they're connected. Their deal certainly isn't Moriori. Yeah, their deal certainly isn't Moriori. So it can't be their most direct line, see? Things like that we know within Tahumaakaakanuimatua, that we can know for certain, we are not silly. As soon as we looked over their claim, what they were claiming, we thought twice about any form of support for such a claim, because they would need some absolutely substantial evidence in there before we'd even consider it. Let's put it this way. If they had 1,800 of the best primaries in evidence of that claim in the far north, in the north there, we would consider it. I didn't say we'd agree with it. I said we'd consider it. Okay, and that's it. That's it. After we look at those 1,800 primaries, we might decide they're not good enough. Okay. And if you've got to have the best primaries available, and we're talking worldwide. We're not just talking about what's in the country, what's local, what's regional. We're talking worldwide, and that's why I said that, because I'm not silly. Hapu uretārewa can grow within 2 centuries. And if you look at their primary line as we know it, if it was awa, and we think that it is, but a very more ideal, very much so, a very more ideal, because a deal like that Waikato has from within their uretārewa is not mistakenly, relatable to us, te awa. But then all of those lines are very close to us. Māori, Maui, Moriori, Moai, te awa, where the Tahumaakaakanuimatua last line and surviving of Tutura te Matua. Okay? Last remaining line of Tutura te Matua. Now, we're not that silly. So, that's not far from why I went off. I went off. I probably went off possibly too happily, because I knew I was getting a good break. Yeah, that's all. And I perhaps should have explained that, but I was always coming back on. And it was just some of the questions I got from last week that made me sort of want to come back into the quarter, explain the move, explain a lot of the changes that are happening. A lot of different people are going to start entering into our kōrero. We're going to have the kōrero become more diverse, more spread out right through the Aukati. We won't have the same kōrero as what's happening through the Western AukatiTai, and what's happening through the Runanga and incorporation only, or national office only. We will have the kōrero exactly from each of the rohe wenua from within the AukatiTai, and all the different people that represent those. At the moment, they want the iwi, obviously the ariki and the Māreikura, to deliver our kōrero for each of the regions. But the good thing about it is that each of the kōrero is going to come up differently. Okay, and it's going to have that regional, regional feel about it. And, you'll start to see the differences between each region and each different area of operation of Te Tahu Trusts and Tahu Investments Limited and or Tahu Investments Limited. Okay, and so, yeah, that's, I thought I'd share that, a bit of that kōrero. So if their primary line is awa, then, hey, they weren't here over 1,000 years ago. They were here in the 1200s. That's highly impossible, almost, for them to be here over 1,000 years ago, or anywhere in the country over 1,000 years ago. If you think hard about that. I mean, Waikato, they weren't even born. They weren't even around. So, better if you were an actual iwi. Okay? And that's why the 7 iwi are brought forward, because those are the major expansions of tribal groups and growth of tribal groups and advancements within the country. And the biggest taiōpuru in the country, the most senior taiōpuru in the country, the ariki and the whakapapa and whakapapa kōrero for each of those tribes, it's the most expensive, the most extensive, and the most advanced in the country. Hapu rea tārua are just a part of that. And in some cases a very small part of that, in some cases a large part of that. But, we're pretty sure that Waikato is one of those hapu rea tārua that didn't really have that larger part of it, especially if they're middle range in the pecking order of awa. They didn't really have that larger part to play within awa. I mean, the largest part they played was within Kingitanga from 1858. And things was in Kingitanga. Okay? And I think it comes down to a lot of the kōrero needs to be handed down a lot better than it has been. A lot of the kōrero around Kingitanga, says that they have, the most prestigious lines in the country, and they whakapapa right throughout the country. Well, every iwi does. Not many hapu ure tārewa can do that, though. Most uri can't do that. Okay? Most uri can't do that. But, that doesn't mean to say that Waikato's got more prestigious whakapapa than anybody else, because they haven't. And that's the actual truth. When Kingitanga was set up as a way of, as a blockade to those, there was threats, crown threats going down. And it was set up as a blockade, and more so in that respect. And Waikato was targeted as a result of that. Even some of our people were targeted as a result of that, to take up that central position for the tribes, and those that officially affiliated to the work of the Kingitanga. Not all of us did. Tahumaakaakanuimatua, to my understanding, went against. They opposed it straight away. Okay, and so, yeah, that's a lot of my corded on that. So anybody, I was, a bit astounded at, a bit astounded at some of the, surprised as well at some of the questions I was getting. I said, well, I'm not even worried about Moriori or Waikato claims anyway. I'm not really worried. No, none of Tahu is worried about Moriori Waikato because we already know our stuff within our land regions. And we know for a fact they've got no claim within any of our regions. Okay, because we've accounted for everyone. Okay, we're not silly. We wouldn't miss out certain ancestries because we thought they weren't ours or anything like that. We would have a good look at all of them and decide after we've had a good look and made a good examination of every bit of detail on those ancestries before we decided that they weren't ours. Okay, and if they weren't, we already know whose they were. See, that's the difference with us. And that we know for a fact there's no Moriori, there's no Waikato, there's no, even Moai in most of our areas, we know that they're no longer there. But the areas that we know that, there could be some in the north. Well, we're not too sure of the Waikato side, but we think they're connected through Maori and Maui, and also with Moriori, and but we think they're more so somewhere in the north, and in different areas in the north, but also in the east coast, around the Awa lands, Tutura, around those areas, because they're another group very close to Moriori and Moai, just the same as Te Atiawa Nui no Runga Te Rangi. Yeah, but we don't think that there's many remaining Moriori or Moai lineages out that way. We just know that they're very well connected. So if there are any, they're most likely to be out that way. Yeah. Waikare moana, rua toki, rua tāhuna. And we're also in those areas. So, and we're very close to those people, to those tribes as well. Not just Waikato. Tuhoea as well. Awa is as well. So, and that's where I think they remain. Even in the south, you'll be hard pressed to find any remaining Moriori, Moai, Maori or Maui left in the south, because Tahu took them all over. Tahu became the most expansive of the lot of our iwi. Okay, one of the most expanded and advanced of our iwi in the country. Okay, and the last of those iwi is Te Atiawa Nui no Runga Te Rangi. And yeah, so yeah, a little bit on that, a little bit more on the people want to understand manatapu and the teina domains and tuakana domains within our kōrero. They want to understand that a bit better, and how we view those particular areas and domains of our super tribal cultural spiritual heritage, because they are some of the most how can I put it, integral or central of all of the regulators and all those sort of regulators that we have in our culture from te ao kōhatu. And so, yeah, we have a little bit of kōrero to bring through on that. And then lastly, some kōrero to bring through as well on the genealogical design of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Yeah, and how I always seem to know who comes from where, and etc., etc., etc. So people have questioned all those areas. So I'm going to talk on all those and finish off on our iwi. Sort of, yeah, it's not really a genealogical design, but it has a certain pattern about it that allows me to consider it as a design. And I utilise that, and I follow that every time kōrero comes up. I know exactly where we are, who we're talking about, and where they come within all the genealogical lines. So just about the whole of the 260,000 plus people that we have in our iwi these days, I can account for just about. And I know exactly where they are. So I've got a little bit of an explanation of all of that coming at the end, and a little bit of kōrero on our uretārewa and the wives within our uretārewa. And just to start off, our kōrero on the Mārikura, the kahurangi and the tapairu that come through our lines as well, right from the top through Tutura te matua, right through. And so, look, we have all of that kōrero to look forward to today. And so interesting, Interesting that people would question me around Waikato. As far as we can see, Waikato doesn't have a claim. And should be careful with a claim like that, because if they haven't got the evidence to back it up, they're wasting their time with a claim like that. Okay, and especially if you're hapu uretārewa rānei, you've got to have an excess of easily 1,500 to 1,800 of the best to be able to prove that outright, to be considered. All very well taking things like that to the courts, but do you have the primaries available that would ensure that not only would, taking it through those courts, I mean, most of those courts, unless they're lined with tūturu people like me, who could actually just about interpret quite correctly, quite accurately, anything you put before me, I would know. But, you put them through those courts at the moment who are not lined with people like me, they're never going to know. See? So what I was just about to say was, all very well talking about taking them, taking the kaupapa through courts, and how quickly, you can get an answer through the courts. And I'm not surprised that you can get a quick answer through the courts. I'm not surprised, because they wouldn't really know. Okay? But what I want to add to that is, they not only have to please those courts, they should be able to please a court like ours. Could claims like that please a Tahumaakaakanuimatua court? And that would be my area. Remember me, the last kōrero that I did from the Ariki page, I mentioned that the Mārikura o Were Will Te, she runs all these types of the governance and management is handled by her, by the Māori kuna, and all that sort of thing. But everything, all those different areas, anything that happens outside of the runanga, anything that happens outside of the whare kōrero, the whare tūpuna, anything that happens outside of the kōmititanga o te take, or te hapu, all of that is my business. So could your claim satisfy a court like that? And I don't think, I don't think you know, but if you didn't have substantial enough evidence within the 1800 primaries that you produced for a court like ours, you'd get nowhere with a claim like that. Okay? So, it's all very well bringing forward claims like that, but if you haven't considered a lot of the different trajectories that you bring within the claim, and you don't know in depth exactly what you're talking about within a claim like that, you could end up with that claim, especially if you brought it to a court like ours, which would happen on our marae, our main courtyard of Te Turatama, of Tahumaakaakanuimatua, and would be headed by me. I would preside over that court, and we would hear all of the evidence, every shred of that evidence, every detail of that evidence. And it would get, absolutely, hounded by everybody there. But firstly by the court. And then all the whānau and the hapu that attend because they want to hear all the kōrero and challenge all the kōrero, Can their claim handle that? And that's a lot tougher than the courts. Supreme Court, High Court, any of those courts are a lot easier compared to my court. And I already know. I already know the processes of our court. A claim like that, you're dreaming. You're dreaming to make it through there. Okay? So, and that's how we get such a great quality and standard of kōrero. Why? Because we know the standards. We understand what that is. And we know our stuff. You look around the different types of tribes and the different lineages and ancestries among the tribes. We've got no worries with interpreting all of that and understanding all of that and comprehending all of that. But there's some rigorous processes in a tūturu court. Okay? Some real rigorous processes. Why? Because in a tūturu court, you've got everything, it's exactly what that says. Everything is tūturu, so you're going to get, challenged to the max. Your evidence will get torn to bits. Every shred of evidence would need to stand up to that sort of scrupulous sort of, I'm trying to think of the word here, but you know what I mean. Challenging. Everyone's going to challenge that evidence. Even the whānau and the hapu that attend that court sitting, they will have their chances to stand and challenge all the kōrero. But he kōrero no te waha tonu ke, tawa kōrero. Karakau I te whawhai, karakau hoki I te mea hai, he mea hai hui hui tonu. Ki roto ki te rūnanga hapu, ki roto anō hoki ki te iwi. Katoa, te iwi nui tonu. Katoa anō hoki o rātau, oroto. E mā nuka nuka ke atu ana, e whakaaroaroa ke atu ana. Noa nui ki tawa kaupapa. huge kaupapa that. But no, we're not concerned about that sort of claim at all. Yeah, so that's where they should worry. In a tūturu court, can it stand up? And I don't think Waikato's claim's got a chance. Just hearing it, when I heard Tukuroirangi talking about their claim, as soon as he said, oh, we go back over 1,000 years, I laughed I just about laughed. Because a hapu uretarewa with a claim like that would just about get thrown out in a tūturu court. See, that's why I didn't want to laugh, but deep down, that's really what I wanted to do. Because how can you be a hapu uretarewa and claim something like that? How can you be so sure? I just about wanted to get in touch and say, well, can I have a look at your evidence? Because I guarantee you he hasn't got enough to even say that. Okay, you need a whole heap of evidence before you can be considered in a tūturu court of law with a claim like that. Okay, and that's so junior. That's the other thing. Remember I mentioned that the other week when I spoke about that. They're so junior in the mix, And even if they're mōreori, they're still very, very junior. Waikato, and the likelihood of them existing over 1,000 years ago is very unlikely, actually. Yeah. Okay, so, it's probably not what Waikato would want to hear from me either. And I'm not saying those things as a result that I want Tahumaakaakanuimatua to enter into that. I mean, we'd only enter if they came to us and they said, oh, we've got a claim here. And I'll go, I beg your pardon? And I'd ask for X amount of evidence. And if they haven't got that, I'll say, well, then remove yourselves and remove your claim from our region because you're not welcome here. And I'd do that by law and have them removed. To not have the evidence required and the backing required for such a claim as that anywhere is not only cheeky, but it's also very, very, it's poor conduct. It's bad, within a tribal-based society, and we still have that. We're still tribally based. We're not a racial-based people at all. We're still tribally based. That's poor. That's very, very poor socially and culturally. The etiquette that you're utilising within such a claim as that isn't even backed up with the best, with 1,800 of the best to be even considered a claim. Yeah, that's very poorly handled, very poorly brought forward. So they should reconsider in that respect, I would say. And we would, pretty much tell them to go back home where they come from and don't come back here until they realise that what they're claiming is a load of rubbish. They wouldn't be welcome back into our regions until then. Yeah. But they're not. So yeah, we're not too concerned about them. So let me go, because a lot of kōrero there. And let's move on to the update real quickly. Yeah, just looking at a new lawyer. We are pushing for that through the tribunal. We have had talks around the different lawyers available and talked about a lot of the problems we've had. And that's why it always ends up back with me in my hands. Because a lot of the problems we've had with them, nothing against any of them. We know that we've had many. We've had about 7 or 8 over since 2009. And they've all been pretty good. They've all been pretty good, especially the ones from different tribes. But the problem with them is that they only went so far. They couldn't go any further. And the problem with all the others is that they were always, conflict of interest. And the reason the other tribal ones couldn't go so far is because they had conflict of interest too. The other thing was sometimes we conflicted. We conflicted. What we wanted was not what they wanted. They considered things a matter of process. We said, stuff your process. Yeah. And so we were telling those lawyers, no, we said, no, this is what we want. You tell the Crown what we want, and you do what we want. Otherwise, you hit the road, And that's how staunch we've been right through. And I think we've earned the respect of the Crown. We've earned some respect and also respect from the other tribes because we're stuck, staunchly and truly to exactly who we are. And what we're here to do and what we're aiming for. We're not, foregoing half of the way and then starting to peter out. That's not what we're all about. We're about going all the way, and for our people, and we're about taking that all the way and all the way strong. Okay, and so we wouldn't budge. There was no compromises from us. We would not compromise tradition. We would not compromise anything with the Crown. And as far as we can see, we were being blackmailed. Stood over as well. And we told some of these lawyers, we said, well, that to me would be blackmail. That to us would be blackmail. And, even once we came to an understanding that that's exactly what it is, they still wanted us to do the same thing, and go under these junior tribes. No way. No way. I mean, we were all for settlement, but we weren't for settlement under the conditions and requirements that were being dictated. Let's make sure that we understand that we were being dictated to. That was exactly how it was. And for success in the space, that's what we had to do. And we said, get stuff. And so, I've always ended up leading us in the legal representative area. The final SOC, we've also been discussing different areas around there. And it's been very successful there. The other thing around the update for settlements is in the Crown talks. We're trying to hurry those through, but at the moment, one of the settlement and negotiation person from amongst the Crown representatives available to us, we're waiting for him to get back to us. And also the Treaty Settlements Manager for Wairarapa, also we're waiting for her, the acting at the moment, to get back to us. Because the proper one isn't available at the moment. And so once we can work through those talks and work through settlement, remembering also that last year, towards the end of the year, we were told about being granted back our independence within the settlement space. And that was awesome. And we had the option of waiting to settle later as the independent iwi that we are, or settling still in the same round. And we elected to settle in the same round as the independent entity that we are. And pushing forward through that part of the year, the second half of the year, pushing forward with our target to make sure that everyone in the space understood we are the primary iwi of Wairarapa and Heretaunga Wairua and the primary claimant. By the end of the year, we were pretty sure that we had achieved that. Okay, and so we're in a very good space at the moment. yeah, there's nothing to worry about. But it's not just for us, but for everybody. We think the other tribes need to calm down, that they're getting up in arms, about nothing, and that there's actually nothing to worry about. And it's like we've been saying all along, if we all fall in with custom, nothing can go wrong. We'll all get back what's ours. We'll all be able to represent exactly what's ours. And we'll all actually be at the correct status, blah, 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 blah. And things are starting to fall back into that, align with that, with all of that. Okay? So there's nothing to worry about. It's quite a good time for everybody. And, so the other tribes should relax and enjoy the times, because, things are coming into pretty much an era where we can all take advantage of, ka nui kepa te hua, o roto ngā whāi ngā tonu, kia tata matau I roto I ngā tūāhuatanga, I whake nei, whai ake atu nei rā, e mātau ko kahunu uri, within our talks last year. A lot came from that, and our talks through the hearings as well, across the bill. All the kōrero from there as well, very significant, very, beautiful kōrero. And we should be very proud of where that's brought us right now. Because we've actually brought back a very tūturu space for us, all of us. And the good of us all is gonna come out of that. And that's a great thing. I mean, even the Crown, but the Crown's got to allow for us to deal with us. And the least of our worries should be the Crown. I mean, how the Crown ends up is most probably also for them exactly where they should be, And I know the challenges that our claim presents the Crown. They're huge challenges. Whether they end up out of the country, that's another thing yet again. I mean, we've got to take that countrywide. We've got to take that publicly. I mean, no one group can decide that. Things like that. But let's face it, the problem in this country has largely been the dictatorship of the New Zealand Crown. Okay, we can't operate an organised, everyone talks about, the style of government, a democracy. People try to achieve, democracy in this country. I think we've got something that tries to achieve that, but doesn't always. And the reason we're going to always have problems trying to achieve that is because we have a dictator sitting at the top. I mean, how do you achieve democracy with a dictator sitting at the top? I mean, that's almost like agreeing to Tutura to govern over everybody. I mean, that would be a dictator, And Tutura is a terrible, terrible, they're a good example of that, but they're a terrible dictator of things, and they need to cut that out. They need to cut that out to because they'd be incorrect about most things that they try to drive forward across the mutu, and they dictate just about everything, and they need to cut it out, because that would be almost mirroring the Crown, the New Zealand Crown, who is the problem in this country. And a lot of our claims are we are the only tribe in the country that confronts all those problems through our claims. We're the only iwi, and we're the only group, and we're the only ones asking them to shut down. Because a lot of the problems that they've caused us throughout the last couple of centuries are pretty much, broadly set right across everybody. Everybody's been hounded by the ways of this dictatorship in the country. And it's just caused so much grief and problems in the country and issues. That's just a little bit more there on the statement of claim and how we need to some of the things we need to be aware of, some of the issues in there. And I just thought I'd mention the Crown in there. And who cares really where they end up? Because where they end up too is where they end up. If these other tribes are feeling sorry for themselves because of where they've ended up, and that's only because they were wrong about the status, origins, and the true status and origins and identity of the tribes that they represented. They're still here. They just got different populations and different statuses, and their customary identity is quite different. That's all. But they're still here, so they can be proud they've achieved something, within the space. And the tribes they've represented are still here. They're somewhat lesser in status and somewhat, to a degree, different in terms of customary identity and customary origins from where they first understood that they were. But they're still here, and they'll remain here. The only thing is that the primary iwi and primary claimant of this region is Tahumaakaakanuimatua, and that's who we are here. Okay? That's actually who we are here. Okay? Because that's the primary iwi and the primary claimant of the region, and we're the only ones that claim the entirety. Same with Here Taunga Wairua, we claim the entirety. Okay, and so moving on, the complaints. I did already mention that in the complaints that the, first of all, the Rangitane and the WhakataungaKereeme complaints have been lodged. We're still yet to talk a bit more ourselves and the settlement and negotiation person in there from within the Crown around those issues. They're going to come to me, no doubt, and ask me to what degree, and I'm going to tell them, well, round about somewhere between 70 and 90% of those settlements need to be retracted. Thank you very much. And they're not going to like that, these groups. They're going to dislike that even more. And the Crown's going to dislike that even more than those groups, probably, and be very, very upset. And the primary question that they would put to me would be, why? And we would say, because all those tupuna are Tahumaakaakanuimatua, and would show them why. See? And then if we point to the lands that they're situated on, then, the huge majority, the overwhelming majority of the land in WhakataungaKereeme and of the lands, except for around, Te Tapere Nui or Whakataunga, that's a bit different. But any of the other rangitane lands, we've got a huge challenge to put down on those lands, because the huge majority are Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Okay? I mean, whether they're Māmoe or not, the Tahumaakaakanuimatua lands. Okay, so we need to understand that. We didn't take that lightly, a complaint like that. And the same with Wairarapa, around about between 70 and 90. Could we be more accurate, they might ask us? for Wairarapa Moana around about 85%. And that's still not going to make them any happier, eh? 85% of their settlement gone. See, that they're not going to be happy about that. Can we be more accurate with rangitane, with our complaint against theirs? Around about the same. 80%, between 83, 85%. And they're not going to be happy with that. Okay, why? Because rangitane is kahu of Tahumaakaakanuimatua of Maumaharahiaake. That means to say that they're all descendants of Tahu. So is Kupe, so is Pōpoto, so is Haunui. They're all descendants of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. So we've got big problems in there of people not actually understanding as well the simple fact that throughout the different era in the heritage of those tupuna, they failed to include the senior lineages within those ancestries and within the heritage, the whakapapa and whakapapa kōrero, in the heritage of those tupuna. Quite simply, that's what they've done. Plus the misinterpretation of population and the interpretation of the descent lines and the intermarriages and all of the tikanga and kawa that go along with all of those things. Yeah. I mean, basically, we are the only tribe in Wairarapa Tararua, Heretaunga Wairua that operate on the tūturu tikanga, the tūturu kawa, the tūturu tika, the reo, everything customary from our regions. So quite simply, we can't go wrong. We can't go wrong in our interpretation if we do everything within the correct, the kawas and the etiquette, the correct way of interpreting all of those lines, etc., etc., etc. If we follow those things correctly, those sequences, etc., correctly, then we can't go wrong. Theoretically, we can't go wrong. Technically, we can't go wrong. And neither can they, had they known how to do all of that stuff. Okay, and kahunu would get the same thing if they come up to settle before us. Well, one of the things I was hoping was that kahunu, I mean, they've sort of given us an indication that they were thinking of or perhaps considering looking at accepting their descent line through Waitaha Rangi, which would mean a most direct descent, a direct descent to Wairarapa Tararua through us. Remembering that we're the ahika roa here in Wairarapa Tararua, which would be awesome. That would be awesome. And which also could mean that we could have had the option of them settling with us. We were going to, hopefully, we were going to look at that within our talks, because we enjoyed the talks, we enjoyed the hearings, and we enjoyed our talks from last year. We were quite positive that, some of the most positive steps and moves were being made by Kahunu Uri through the end of last year and through the hearings as well. And we were quite blown away. We were quite blown away by all that. Quite massive. But we don't sort of know how their settlement is organised properly at the moment. We don't understand how that is going. So they might, in fact, settle without us. If they do, they need to be careful, because we would complain if the same thing. If their settlements are not quite right, and a lot of their ancestries and lands, ngā taunahanahatanga kairoto, hey, we're always going to complain about things like that, if they're ours. Okay, but if they held up settlements and waited till we got to settle as well, and we settled together, that would be an awesome outcome, especially through the talks. Some of the questions that they put to us, that Hami, I can remember putting to us, they wanted to get a good look at the tūturutanga that we were talking about in there, how that fits in with them, how they might see that, and what they would be hoping is that would help them to fully change their mind and consider that to come our way was the best thing that they could do. But the funny thing was that when they finished off the talks around the bill in Parliament in December last year, what it seemed like is that they had already decided to come their way. So I wasn't too sure of where they stood then, and so we've been waiting for things to materialise from there. And if they do await us and settle with us, then there would be the full materialisation of that whole kōrero. And we've enjoyed that. And so that's pretty much the update. We're still working towards getting a lawyer, but that lawyer would pretty much have to be quite accepting of the way that we've brought our claims and settlements to date, and accepting of our position in the space now, and that things have changed quite considerably to how they were in 2009, 2010. Considerably, yeah. Things have changed. So we could be nothing but happy. We are. And so we're starting to organise ourselves to basically start to work a bit more extensively, a bit more expansively, and a bit more in-depth, and a bit more unilaterally. Because we have all of that to offer the space. We just haven't been utilising that because our organisation mainly wanted to focus on me heading everything going forward over the last 15 years. And that's sort of where we're at. Hopefully we'll get through those talks a bit quicker. We were hoping to be through those and already aware of our date to get the negotiated deal done for settlements. I think we've got plans through finance to talk about, to try to see if we can do that deal right on the same day. That's part of what we're planning in the negotiation of the deal. Of course, we'll probably, if we don't feel that the offer we have is quite enough, we'll ask for a second offer. And also, which means that we could possibly take the second offer. And so those are some of the things that are going on, and there's some of the kōrero happening for us to the moment, and that's very current and of interest to us. And so we can't wait for that. Even if we could, we were hoping to have that done by end of week last week, but any of these weeks would be fine with us. And so long as we get a date for that, location for that, and to go to that huihuinga and make that decision right there and then. We've got a lot to do around investments, etc., to talk about, and negotiations to talk about. I have funding agents and all that to look at, and all sorts of stuff like that. But one of the major things around the settlement is getting the final deal done for Waitarapa Tararua. We already have a good idea of what we would consider doable as a negotiated value for settlement within Wairarapa. But we need to get to that point yet still, and the Crown talks are still happening, and so we need to work through those as quickly as possible. And plus I've been discussing things with Melissa's the only one I've seen at the moment, but there's another two of my people from the Runanga Nui o Tahu that will join me in a part of those talks. Okay, moving on. Moving on to I think we've pretty much pointed out what we need to point out in terms of the Waikato Moriori claim. There's nothing really more to discuss around there. And I don't think that we would be wrong in pointing out that sort of detail, because, I mean, any claim is tough to claim. But with a claim like what they've got through the trajectories that they're claiming, that claim, that's a tough one, because they're very junior. They're hapu, they're taharewa. Look, everything's against them, not for them. And this is probably why I think Whātua have an understanding of that. They have a very good understanding of their people and their lands and their heritage. And, they would pretty much be able to bring through that much evidence on their a bit different for Whātua, because obviously for their people and their descents through Maui, they were left all of the inheritance of those lines. See, they were left them all. And from what we know of Maui and Māori, they're not iwi. See, the iwi is actually Moriori. That's the iwi. That's the hapu nui tonu ure tārewa of those three groups. Waikato's not an iwi. And Whātua isn't an iwi. And we're talking iwi 6699. Neither of those groups are iwi. However, Whātua, I would say, have the evidence rock solid. They're hapu ure tārewa as well. They have the evidence rock solid to say that their lines of descent left the mana wenua of those lands to their tautiaki, to their taunahanaha, to their ahika within the regions. And if Waikato had that sort of thing, that would be all the better. Not to claim back over 1,000 years, that's a lot tougher than they think. They can't claim that. Most hapu ure tārewa couldn't claim that. But to claim that they have ancestry that goes back that far and be a hapu ure tārewa that inherited that, fine. If they can prove that, that's a lot easier to prove. See? And so, Whātua, no doubt, have their stuff together, and just the simple fact that they blocked out Waikato straight away tells me how well they know their stuff. And so coming to the genealogical design, therefore, and the talks around manatapu and teina and tuakana. Basically, just to put it in the most simple terms, tuakana were usually the leading people. Seniors had a responsibility to provide leadership and a sense of security, strength, and authority for their teina. Okay? And teina, their job was to be complementary to the works within tika, within tikanga, and within kawa of their tuakana. So let's say, for instance, those tuakana weren't up to scratch, then they would be tuakana worthy of being ousted. Or unless you had, total respect for those tuakana and you decided that even though they weren't up to scratch, that, you could try and get them to disregard what they want and get them to follow a different way, a way that was more appropriate to what they should be doing, then that's a lot better, a lot better way to go. But otherwise, tuakana that are not up to scratch are not in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. In Tahumaakaakanuimatua, we don't consider tuakana that are not up to scratch, or who are working illegally or corruptly, or do not consider the mana of their teina at all. Yeah, tuakana like that are not worthy of the position. Okay? So if they work in a feudal way, that's not something we would accept in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. And if they also are corrupt and all that sort of thing, we would not consider that they would be able to that they would be able to for any leadership position, that you've got to be up to scratch. You've got to have your scruples about you. You've got to be able to work within lawful terms and terms according to the law of your tribe and the order, kawaura, all those sorts of things need to be considered. Tuakana that don't work within those precepts are not worthy of being followed. Okay, and so we need to be able to consider that our teina have mana. We also need to consider their mana and that they can make decisions for themselves. We just because we're tuakana doesn't make us dictator of the century and so we can call every shot for our teina. That's not true. That's not how it goes. Okay? Because if the shots that you're calling are corrupt, by rights, the teina can go against. They have the mana to do that. They have the mana to decide differently. They have the mana to go elsewhere if they're not getting what rightfully they should get from you. And if you are not committing yourselves to works as tuakana that are worth complimenting and being complimentary with as a teina, then you're not worthy of the position. And that's how we are, Tahumaakaakanuimatua, and that's exactly the tūturu way left to us from Te Ao Kōhatu. And that comes from pre-1450. Pre-1450. A lot of our tūturu tikanga comes from there, pre-1450. That's when he pērā tonu te tōtara haimata, te iwi, te hapu, te uri, I roto I e rawa. Pre-1450, yeah. Okay, so yeah, our law systems were very authentic in those times. They were the most authentic times. And then we got lots and lots of foreign interest from 1450 on. Now and again, things took some change, went along with some change. So, you know, but we, as a rule, most of the tikanga and kawa of Tahumaakaakanuimatua didn't change, which is good. But we check, you know, what's authentic and what isn't by going back into 1450 and studying a lot of those areas of our growth, expansion, and a lot of the ways of our tribe and our heritage, and through the midst of all our whakapapa and whakapapa kōrero. Okay, so that's simply what that is. Yes, tuakana have a certain amount of authority, and but then so do Tina. Tina still have a domain, and they're the boss of that domain. Okay? So with tuakana, they have a domain and they're the boss of that domain. Well, that's why you have mana to look after that. You're the authority within that mana. And you've got to work in a way that you are working together and that you can unify through and align in unification through the different componentries that you and consistencies that you contain within your domains. That's how tuakana and teina work. Okay? You, as the tuakana, cannot dictate anything. Okay? Now, I'll bring in the mana tapu. Now, mana tapu does not happen within a whānau, necessarily. See? So there's no mana tapu in there. Your most senior is your tuakana, but they don't have mana tapu. Okay, they're just the oldest. Te pakeke, ko ia tonu hoki te whakapakanga, ko ia tonu hoki te mātāmua, e rā mea katoa. Ana, ko ia tonu hoki anu, ko te tuakana. Okay? So that person, the oldest, is the tuakana within Tahumaakaakanuimatua families. Okay, but there's no mana tapu in there, necessarily, and majoritarily. Overwhelmingly, there's no mana tapu. Mana tapu happens when you're a line that is the most senior within the region. That's where mana tapu happens. And that's what I've got in Wairarapa. Okay? That's what my whole line has. Mana tapu. And then the most important layer of that mana tapu is nationally. Okay? And so nationally, we have mana tapu. And that's the most important one because that's where your mana tapu actually derives, is through that, your lineage, and how mana tapu affects that in the country. It's that sort of seniority that has more of an authority over the teina lines. I mean, you still cannot dictate, but you have far more authority. Okay? In terms that our mana goes right across the entire of the iwi. So the whole 260,000 people are under our mana. Okay, that's how much influence we have. To certain degrees, you know, that influence waxes and wane. Well, it doesn't wax and wane. It doesn't wax and wane. It sort of plays more of a significant role in some areas and in moments and times than it does in others. Okay? And that's how that operates. And so teina need to be careful when dealing with mana tapu. Okay, because you're not really just dealing with the tūākana. Okay, you're really dealing with, well, for us, we call that toioua. Yeah, we call that toioua. Regionally, we call that toioua. And so, yeah, we would need to be very, very careful of how we look at things then from a tūākana teina perspective. Okay? And we're talking within the same iwi. Yeah, we're talking within the same iwi. Can an iwi from outside our iwi dictate anything? No. No. No people outside of your people can dictate anything. Doesn't matter whether they're senior to you, junior to you, or whatever they are. They can ask for things, yes, and we can put them to process through our iwi, yes, but we can still get back to them and say, no, we've decided this. And that would need to be taken as acceptable. Unless, of course, they moan again, and they moan and moan and moan, and we still give back a no. You know, that would need to be acceptable to a degree. I mean, you can't take anything to a point where you're just ending up dictating, because there's dictators are not acceptable in our culture. See, that's the other thing. Dictators were never acceptable. Okay? We allowed for free speech, we allowed for freedom, we allowed for flexibility. Everyone had that. Everyone had mana. Okay, and we didn't defy that. You know, whether wahine, tāne, tamariki, mokopuna, karakau. Karakau. We didn't work in feudalist ways which defied the mana of any of those people. Tai pakeke, ahane, doesn't matter. We did not defy any of those. So, yeah, that's the only area where that changes and it becomes more of a tūākana thing, is where mana tapu plays a part. And, yeah, I just want to mention that. I was talking a little bit with some of my whānau, some of my church whānau about some of my ex-whānau mob. And that's where that sort of argument comes into. What they don't understand is the position that I've attained within our iwi. I no longer, I'll give you an example of what can happen. I no longer wish to return into that whānau that, for us, this is how I feel personally anyway, it's run by tūākana that is not up to scratch. And that's what the biggest problem is, and has been for ages in that whānau. I've always worn the mantle in that whānau, but tūākana was sort of misguided, I feel. And I think some of us in the whānau tried to explain that and get them to work a bit differently, but they wouldn't. They just wouldn't listen. Anyway, it so happened that I pulled out and officially pulled my whole whānau out. And but sometimes the kids, you know, wanted to still have things to do with the whānau. That was fine. That was fine. But, you know, we pulled right out because what I've achieved in our iwi is on top line. Most senior, taiopuru, ariki matau, you can't go higher within the mana tapu and the tūākana position that I have now. And I just want to explain it in terms of that the interchangeability that used to exist within that whānau, that ex-whānau mob, and I could go within that whānau and outside of that whānau and operate quite comfortably within that interchangeability, that tūākana and tēina can sometimes have. Which means that I was from both lines. I'm still from both lines, but no longer do I operate that interchangeability. I don't operate that anymore. Okay? And that would go for the two most pakeke in the whānau. You know, that neither of them are really up to scratch in terms of... and the sad thing about that is that they were trained by tūhua. I mean, this is why I've got I'm sorry, I tend to have quite a low opinion, quite a low view of our tūhua side. But they were trained by our tūhua people. And it's sad, because a lot of the trouble that they've caused has been detrimental to the whānau. It's actually not just damaged just our place in the whānau, but also that for a lot of others. And let's face it, most of us have been keen to hold on to the whānau, but at the end of the day, you know, where trouble was looking to be too destructive, some of us got out of there and decided, well, this is not for us, it's ridiculous, let's move on. Well, that's the sort of thing that can happen, and now I'm holding on to that mana tapu, which they don't have. They don't have that sort of authority and that sort of seniority. They have seniority, but only that within Te Maumaharahiaake and the most senior line of Te Aomataura. That's the line that they hold. So that's nowhere near my line. Okay, so they're not a mana tapu line. Okay, they're not not of the authority that I have within mana tapu. Okay. Now, they do have mana within the top 6 within the region, within the iwi, except they don't hold on to the iwi line. See, the tūākana within their whānau holds on to kahunu as an iwi line, which isn't an iwi. Which sounds ridiculous, I know, but that's the way it is. That's the way it is. And, so as a result of everything, I won't return back to that whānau, and I will be sticking to that and have done away with the interchangeability in there. Because what I don't want to do is go back under those pakeke in their whānau. And that's my choice. That's my choice. As forgiving as I am for all the things that they've done to my whānau and me, my heart says, you know, and the Lord says to me, the best thing for me to do is to concern for my own whānau, to concern for our lines, and to concern for what I've achieved within the iwi, and not to worry about kahunu uri or anything that whānau stands for, like mob or anything like that. I mean, we're not gang anyway in my whānau. We're not interested in that. Okay? I enjoy, you know, the support we can have and the good kōrero we can have around Black Power and stuff like that. But we're considering very, very carefully, doing away with all sort of gang affiliation and stuff like that, and hanging about with the gangs as in terms of being whānau to them, etc., etc., etc. And that's as a result of a lot of the terrible things that they've done. You know, we're not that silly. But if they're going to lose control that easily over the most trivial issues and things that they bring up, you know, it's not worth it. It's not worth it trying to be whānau with these people who have lost the idea of what that is. You know, they've obviously lost the understanding and the idea of what that is. So we consider that. We're still considering that, you know, whether we want too much to do with the gangs as whānau. We were going to try and hold on to black power, being close to black power, but we sort of feel now that we want to move on from there and sort of drop all the gangs. You know, otherwise other gangs will look at us and say, oh, they're black power only, you know, or they're black power, or they're mob, or anything like that. We're not interested in that. Taking sides about who's who. We're not interested in that. We're not that cliquey. Okay? But we are Tahumaakaakanuimatua. That's our true identity. That's who we are. That's who our tupuna were. Our tupuna weren't gang. And so that's what we're going to hold on to. And we're still working through those sorts of issues. But that's the thing with my ex-whānau mob, is that I disagree to the interchangeability of that line. And they can't argue that. They can't argue that. But that's the sort of authority I can have as mana tapu. Okay, my mana tapu doesn't just go right across the whole of the whenua, but right across the whole of Tahumaakaakanuimatua and Wairarapa, right across the whole of Tahumaakaakanuimatua, right throughout the country, and also is endorsed by the most senior line of Tahumaakaakanuimatua, Te Tura te Matua, and also Te Awa. Okay? And that's where my mana tapu begins. Their mana doesn't. Their mana only begins at Te Aomātarahimatua and ends at Te Aomātarahimatua, within the most senior of Te Waipūhoro, of the most senior of Te Aomataura. Okay? And that's the sort of authority I can have. Now, as Teina, they can discuss that with me. They can say to me, oh, they disagree with my move to do that. And, same thing, I'll get back and say, well, we still stick to the same decision. That's what we want. And we'll tell them why. And then we might say, oh, unless these sorts of things change, we wouldn't consider that your conclusions on the matter were even worth considering. Okay? And that's because their culture is still stuck on the mob, stuck on tūhoe, stuck on feudal, and stuck on kahunu uri, who they think is a iwi, which is totally ridiculous because kahunu does not have that sort of structure within its heritage, whakapapa o, whakapapa kōrero, and we know that for sure. So that whānau would need to change all of that before we even consider that. But then I still wouldn't change my mind. I've already made up my mind. And every time, even though I'm mana tapu, every time I went back into that line, into that whānau, under those people, under those pakeke, I would be considered their teina. See the interchangeability? Outside of there, I'm the tuākana, see? And mana tapu right across. As soon as I have anything to do with that whānau, I'm teina. See? And they are tuākana. Okay? But the mana that they have direct from the line that I represent is the only mana that they have and that they represent. Okay? Mine is extensively right throughout the country, right throughout the region, right over the entirety of the iwi, and right over Wairarapa. That's mana tapu. Okay, their mana isn't. And as soon as I change the interchangeability of my lines to consider that I want to only hold my position for the future and for the now, because that's the most important part of where I need to be and where I need to operate from. And that's the Lord's wish, the Lord's will, and what the Lord has commanded that I do, and that would be best that I do, by my whānau, by my kids, by my mokopuna, by our iwi. That would be the best thing for me to do, and not to continue being interchangeable with that particular line. And that would be fine with me. And so I'm acceptable to that. But that gives you an idea of the sort of mana that I have, and more of an understanding. And so that's a tuakana teina thing as well. But that's not something worthy of considering for every tino tuakana line. No. That's way besides the point, any point. That's way outside, that's far removed from most tuakana teina lines. Okay? The main thing for tuakana teina within whānau is our way of looking at tuakana is only to the eldest, and it's all to do with pakeke. And they people that questioned that said to me, well, can you explain that? Why aren't the other elder siblings in the whānau tuakana as well? And I said to them, because tuakana to us does not mean elder sibling. Tuakana to us means the eldest of the siblings, or the eldest within the whānau. That's what that means to us. Okay? Or the most senior line in descent and ancestry. But within a whānau, it only means the eldest. And they say, well then, what does that make the others? And I said to them, pakeke. Oh, and they go, oh, shivers, that's right. But they're not tuakana, no. They're not tuakana. The tuakana is the eldest. Okay? And the other meaning of tuakana and Tahumaakaakanuimatua is the genealogically senior in descent among lines. Okay? But no senior has a right to dictate over any teina. Okay? Okay, and then there's tuahine, tungane. Okay? Okay, we have our different terms. Tamatane. A tamatane can be tungane. Tamatane can be a younger brother. See? We do have our terms and ways of our terminology that we use with each other outside of tuakana and teina. Most people go on about tuakana and teina like like it's the only domain that matters. And that's not true. That's not true. I mean, there's tuahine tama, there's tuahine tama. There's all sorts of terms that we can use. But definitely tuahine, pakeke, all that sort of thing is easily described within the reo. We don't necessarily utilize tuakana teina only. Okay? Those sorts of... they were some of the elements, componentries of our culture bandied around by the tūhoe over a number of years, and dictated on by the tūhoe over a number of years too. Which when we came back in, we started to talk about how we view those sorts of elements and consistencies within our culture and what they mean for us, okay, and how they operate for us. We didn't like the feudalist way in which Tuhoe operated, those sorts of componentries. Okay, and I think I've gone way over time somewhere. Oh, well, okay, hang on. Yeah, I have. I've gone way over by almost an hour. So I'm going to close my kōrero there. I know I haven't got through on the genealogical, the genealogical design of Tahumaakaakanuimatua, but there are 6 main lines. Yeah, I'll just quickly go through that. There are 6 main lines in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. And we all know the most senior one. It's Tahumaakaakanuimatua. And unless you know those 6 main lines, you don't know who is who in the iwi, and whereabouts you come and why Rangitāne are the most tina. Why? Because they're the last line. So the end of that 6th line is Rangitāne. Okay, the 5th line I think is Kahu. And the 4th line I think of descent is Maumaharahiaake. Yeah, that's who that is, Maumaharahiaake. The 3rd line of descent is Iratūroto. Iratūroto Tama, that is. The line above that one is Iraroa. Oh, sorry. The 3rd line is Iratūroto. Okay, and the 2nd line is Tahumaakaakanuimatua te tamarua uri, and of course the top line, Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Okay, so there's 6 main lines, and you just have to know your way around through those 6 lines, and basically who is who. Okay. Our ure tārewa, just quickly, our ure tārewa is Tutura te matua, ia te āri, ko ia te mārikura, te āri. Okay? Iratūroto te matua, have I written that properly here? I haven't written that properly here. Because it's been a while since I looked back at this whakapapa that I lined up of the Tārewa. But I think it says kaunuai. Iratūroto te matua, so the mother of Tahumaakaakanuimatua is kaunuai. And katahika puta mai a Tahumaakaakanuimatua ia te rongo mai. Okay? Te ārei, ko ia te mārei, ko ia anō, te ariki wahine, ia te tira te matua. Iratūroto te matua, ia kaunuai. It's just I can't read. It looks like an R. And it looks like I scribbled in the U and tried to do an N there. I'm sure it's kaunuai, not kauruai. It's kaunuai. Kaunuai. And because I don't use those names a lot, and I've always spoken about, that's all the kōrero's been referring to. Just the ure tārewa, never the wives. though we keep all their kōrero confidential as well. Okay, and of course the wife of Tahumaakaakanuimatua, te rongo mai. Okay, and our next kōrero, which will be in about 3 or 4 weeks' time, when I come back on, we'll talk a wee bit more about those wahine, and also the a lot more kōrero around those actual lines, the lineages right down into Tahumaakaakanuimatua te tama, through to Turatama, Rākainui, and all those lines, and all their wives as well. We've been meaning to. It's just that we've been stuck on the conflicts over the last 15 years. It's just taken up all our time. But we do have a lot of the kōrero there. On the Mārekura and Uere will te of our iwi, right down to our current, who I'm pretty confident is going to have plenty to do with our iwi very soon. And obviously we have much to talk around still on all those sorts of things. They being so priority and critical also to the iwi, to every person in the iwi I know speaks very highly of Oere Te Jess, and from what I share with them, on here and things like that, they're looking forward to a lot of work being done, and so am I. So we need to bring in a lot of their kōrero too. They've had a huge role to play, obviously, in the surviving of our iwi into the modern day. And it's just going to be equally as big a role to ensure that Tahumaakaakanuimatua survives into the generations to come and the centuries to come. For further millennia. So every step we make in every part of our iwi, every person becomes so very vital and important to the role. And as we watch through the different the role of kawaura and how tikanga and tika and kawa have had a huge role to play. Within all those things, we also need to have a good look at, what we do now is very, very vital and important to all those sorts of things as we move forward from here. Okay, so aroha mai. I didn't explain all those things prior to, and that I just started to relax a bit more and enjoy some time without having to be on there. But here I am back again, just quickly, and so in 3 or 4 weeks' time, I'll be back again to join you with more kōrero, more updates on Tahumaakaakanuimatua Settlements 2023, which started on March 07, 2022. Kia tātou. Ngā mihi ake atu, kia tātou mātou, kātoa koutou, kātoa. All my prayers, for all of us, and indeed all of our iwi, and all of our communities, all of our people out there that are looking to that are looking to strengthen and move forward within our tribal culture, our spiritual, super tribal and cultural way of doing things, and advancing in that. Awesome. But all our prayers go towards that right now, and towards the importance of enriching our lives within that, and also that understanding also that within our iwi, Father Lord, that you have the most important role in that. Our people need to understand that. You have the most important role in that, and part to play and all of that. Strengthen the understanding, strengthen also, Lord, the purposes that we have, and they are so significant. Strengthen the understanding of that, and the ability to look towards you for guidance in all those things, and to understand how very, very important that is, to do exactly that, and to live within a tribal culture that is centered now on the culture and understanding in atuatuatanga and wairuatanga, and the awesome authority and power that you bring within that, Lord, of our tuakana. See, that's the most important part of this whole thing, and that our people need to understand. And also that any queen or their whānau being a part of a massive reinvigorating of such cultural fundamental and critical areas of life within our society, within our culture, within our ways of living, and from throughout our communities, etc. We have a huge responsibility to that. It doesn't matter who we are, Lord, that if we look to you for that guidance through all those things, they being so critical to our country, to our people, and to ensuring that, the mana whenua of our lands, which we are committing you, Father Lord, to leading in Jesus' name these days, and that we commit you to centrally. Help them to understand, help everyone to understand, Lord, your role in that you do have a huge role in that. Needless to say, we're not cancelling out our tūturutanga. No, that's not what we're doing. We're committing more to our tuakana lines that for some reason we decided to forget about, which would not be culturally the appropriate thing to do, would not be the correct thing to do, because if we look back at the history, the heritage of these tuakana, they would be absolutely capable of leading and being an authority within such a domain as tuakana for us. I think, and we think within Tahumaakaakanuimatua, Lord, that at some point our tupuna considered more so for the way of life that we brought to the country, rather than a life through those tuakana, and that at some point through the changeover through the East, coming through China, Japan, India, and those areas that we migrated through, we remained there for quite some time and then migrated through. They considered that this life arranged in this particular way that we call tuturu was what they wanted most of all. We'll look at how we ended up. That sort of tells you why we would consider you far better, Lord, than continuing to go on the same plane, because chances are a lot of us are going to end up back in the same boat again if we want to try and live by those ways anymore. And that's why we've changed, because we don't want that to happen for our future generations. Lord, help all our people, our hapori, to understand that this is not a turn away from our tūtirutanga. We're still going to carry as much of that as possible. We're going to carry as much of the tūtirutanga as possible through the positivity that we know existed in everyday life, and the positive energy that we carried within the spiritual. It wasn't a life carried with the positive and the negative together. It wasn't like that. So we've taken up life again, aroha mai. We've taken up life again within the positive, but we've ruled out all of the negative. And that's how we view what is best for the future. Not only that, but a life with you, and that is God-centered as well. Again, we don't throw away everything of our tūpuna mātua. We just don't practice it anymore. But all our generations will know. All our generations have access to their tūturutanga. There's no problem with any of that. Our seniorities today, our ariki today, would consider it a far better way forward and for the future. To have that future led by you, mighty Lord, Lord Jesus, in your holy name, and your conquering name, and almighty faithful name, Lord Jesus, I pray. Amen. Ka piti hono ka tātai hono ko rātau mātonu tērā rātau te mate kia rātau. Ka piti hono ka tātai hono ko tātau mātonu anō tēnei te kānuhi o rā. Kua, kai te mihi atu. Kai te mihi atu tēnā rā tātau. Tēnā rā tātau. Mauri o rā. Ka huri.